Grab your coffee, or maybe something a little stronger. It's Fixed Ops Focus with Dave Rogers and Steve Shaw.
Welcome back to reality, Mr. Dave Rogers. How you doing, sir?
Doing fantastic, Steve. Yeah, back from Vegas on the red eye this morning. So they never go quite as planned. It's only my second one, but I've had a hard time sleeping on them things. I'm thinking, get on the plane 11:30 Vegas time. That's 3:30, 2:30, Eastern time. I'll have no problem going to sleep. I didn't eat anything on there or whatever. It's just not as easy. It's not as easy as you think it is.
It's never as easy as it looks. Yeah, I in all of my travels, the red eyes that I would take are generally like Seattle back to Florida, or sometimes LA back to Florida. You got to get a direct flight. But that's a brutal day. The next day is brutal. I never thought you'd be ready for a podcast today. How was Vegas?
I'm pretty good with my, for an old guy, I got good stamina up there, but I know damn well about 6 o'clock, I'm going to be done. I'm going to be cooked. Yeah, I know it. I get to see it.
But you got to get one of these really cool watches. I'm now Claude and I, because Claude and I have this really great relationship where it's my whole running plan and everything is involved. So now they said you have to start tracking your sleep, right? So I've got this whole thing for recovery. So I had to go out and buy this new watch that can track my sleep. And so now it's telling me whether I get a good night's sleep or not. And so I'm on day 2, and I had a good day and a fair day of sleep. So that's the next little thing there. It's learning how to recover better.
I got all those trackers. You got the Aura rings. You got a bunch of different stuff. I mean, there's apps out there that do it. I mean, it really is the key to being rested up, is getting some good sleep. But as well as I do, it's tough to do. You go 3 hours, west, right? You lose the time when you gain the time when you go out there, but when you come back, And if you like the guys that were out there that came back today, they're going to waste the whole day. They're going to land at 6, 7 o'clock tonight. The whole day is gone.
Yeah.
Now you can get work done on a plane, doing your laptop and stuff, but it's still not the same. It really isn't, sitting on there for 6 hours, and it feels like 9 hours. But
it was, as long as you got the first class seat, and I'm sure the guys that are working for you may or may not had first class.
It's funny. You put yourself on a wait list and roll the dice. That's what I always did. I put myself on there, but Vegas was good. It was hot, man. I didn't know. I did not look ahead. I did no research. I walked out of that airport. I got hit with 105-degree temperature, 107 degrees the first day. Then I looked at my phone and I saw the whole week was going to be over 105, 106. I was like, damn. Like, I would have brought 5 more T-shirts and a bunch more socks, because it was hot,
Well,
what happened? No humidity.
What did you? Yeah, no, good thing. I won't bore people with the difference between your humidity and no humidity and your heat level. I've learned all that. But what was in the show? What was the show about? It was a Mercedes show. What was that all about?
Yeah, it was after sales. It was for service managers, parts managers, and stuff. They had the typical workshops, 1-hour workshops for different aspects of the business, whether it's, they had a lot of parts stuff. They really did. But yeah, it was, good nuts and bolts, refreshers for people, some of the new stuff coming down the pike, connected cars, which I think everybody's focusing on that now with the manufacturers, to make sure that, these cars, to make sure that the people are registered. And that's, so the guy buys a car, girl buys a car, whatever, then you got to hook them up with the app, right? And you got to get them to register it and stuff. A lot of people don't want a new app. They don't want this unless they know what's involved, right? And then, they're talking about that. And, listen, we all know it's a data thing. Everybody wants the data now, right?
Yeah.
And that's why people don't like it so much. But there is a lot of cool stuff that comes with it. So, yeah, that was one of the big things. And then they had a vendor. They have the vendor hall with a bunch of different vendors that were there. Some of the typical ones, some of the not so, a couple new ones there, technology. That's what I spent most of my time looking at. Some of the like My Karma was one I looked at. I wanted to really get into it because we use that in one of our stores, but we don't use it 100%. There was another company out there called TechPay, something, a startup, 600-700 dealers. And that is like a cradle to grave service tool, appointments, the ROs. It was pretty cool. It was actually it was a more modern version of what you see with a lot of the DMSs, which was nice. It just, you don't know how it's going to scale. You don't know how good it works in real life. Demos are perfect, right? But she was showing me, she told me she was in her live system in her particular store. She actually went out and bought a dealership so she could play with this lady. She was like an older Russian lady or Eastern European. She, no nonsense, straight talk, wanted to sign up all 30 stores the first day. I'm talking to her,
For her,
but, yeah. She was, but, like some of the stuff like that, I think it's good. And I think the best thing is my managers that did go, these guys are in the trenches, right? They're the ones that deal with it every day. They don't know. Some of the shop foreman or the parts manager might not know what's going on in service. So I think it gave them a real good chance to connect and learn. And, we hung out a little bit, and there was a little, team building and stuff, which I thought was good. Our sister stores ran into, if I would have known who was going to be there, I would have probably been better organized to put a dinner together or something like that. But, because we have the sister group up in Lehigh Valley, and I didn't know if anybody was coming down for that, but they did. So. And then, just, I think the nice thing is when the manufacturer does that for the after sales guys, and they haven't done it since 2019, I think that, that it's important to keep, they got to keep our teams updated. It can't just be the GMs who never filter this stuff back to the store, right? That's the thing. They go out to one of these meetings and they learn about all this new stuff, and they never tell anybody. So you don't even know what's coming down the pike. So.
Yeah, I think it's important that the manufacturers do those things. And certainly as a, as an associate for the dealership, I would want to be in the know, the brainwashing, what exactly is coming down the pipe, what's expected of me, things like that. And, and when I used to be able to, when I was fortunate enough to go to those things, I always enjoyed going. And even if it wasn't the manufacturer stuff, it is the camaraderie. And you had mentioned, the team building, getting to know the people in your store outside of work, as well as, I think it's so important that we have a network outside of our organization per se, or, and that's what, as a person growing up in a business, my network was so big. I knew everybody. I loved everybody. We always communicated. And I always used the convention as like, here we are. It's January, right? I've got my convention list, and I text everybody like, you going to be at the show? Can't wait to see you. Right. And so it's just a way to communicate with all these people that you've known for all the years, and that friendship that you've built, and I think the convention for me is that one time a year that I can meet hopefully everybody. Right. And I won't see you again until next year, but I'll see you this year. And it's always fun to catch up. I like to say, tell some lies and things like that.
It was fun. I mean, it was good. Yeah, David Sakara, who was on our show, he was there. I ran into him. Him and I were texting before I got there. And Jeff Ridgway is another guy that was on our show, right? He was there. I was talking to him. I did meet one of the bigger guys. Actually, I didn't. I known him for a couple of years, but I was talking to one of the other guys of mobile service that we'll get on the podcast. He's like, this guy's like, he's like the champion of all champions with mobile service. Yeah. But yeah, it was good. It was good. I ran into a parts manager that used to work for me years ago. He was at Acura store. Now he's running a Mercedes store in New Jersey. It was funny. I never expected to see him there. It was good catching up with him and stuff. So yeah, I think there's a lot of that. I think that's, even if you walk out of there for 2 days and you get refreshed a little bit, and you get a little bit more product knowledge, you get a little bit what's coming down the pike. It was nice to see how Chamberlain, the head of Mercedes, go up there and tell you what their goals are for the next 5 years. What they're looking for, admitting that they, the regime made some mistakes chasing electric stuff, which, we know a lot of manufacturers did that, and they're not exclusive in this one. But I think it's good. Sharpening the saw. I would prefer somewhere else besides August in Las Vegas, to be honest with you. But
I hope to never go back to Vegas again. I hate
the
Vegas.
rooms. The rooms are cheaper, and although I'm sure the conference hall's cheaper, but everything on the outside is more expensive, man. They bang you out. That's a place we should take our service advisors to teach them how to ask all the money with a straight face. Because these people out there have no problem asking you $36 for a hamburger. Like, they just don't have a problem. They don't have a problem with it. It's just like, it doesn't matter. You get a drink and it's like $27, and there, when you always say the double for two, it ain't two. It ain't anywhere near two when you're out there in Vegas.
20 maybe. I know when we were in Vegas last for the convention, it was at the wherever we stayed, I forget the Cosmo or whatever. It's a $48 freaking dollar hamburger with no booze, like a burger and fries, $48. Yeah. And I'm like, geez, I can't believe it. There's an exercise. We used to do this all the time. It'd be fun to do. Is you give your service advisor $100, right? Or no. What was it? It's the exercise is you give them, maybe $100, $200. I think in the past we would give them $100 and say, here, go take your wife out to dinner, right? Everything's on me tonight, right? You give them $100, and then some of them would come back with your change, right? And they go, here you go, boss. Here's your change. And then other people would come back. I spent the money, and then there was a few people that came back and say, I spent $200, boss. You owe me another $100, right?
Right.
But as you started to look at these people, the high-powered, the sales guy that sold everything was spending all your money, right? And he was asking you for more. And then there was the service advisor over here that gave you the change. And he's like, he went to Applebee's for dinner. You know what I mean? It's like, I didn't want to spend it, and you could get a feel of how that advisor was and how he looked at the customer. Oh, these people don't have any money. I'm going to go to, Applebee's, and this guy over here is going to Charlie's Steakhouse and getting the Wagyu ribeye, and so it's a cool exercise to really get a flavor of what kind of person that you have working for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when you look at some of the things that, and you get these young men and women, 25 years old, and they look you right in the eye and they ask you for this, like it's crazy. They don't blink. They don't blink. Yeah. It's like you're like, whoa, what the hell just happened? I used to tell my parts guys, give them the blink test, hit them with the, list matrix, whatever it is. And if they blinked, then, you went too high. Those people in Vegas, man, they're experts at doing that blink test. Cause it's crazy.
This funny is, so I'm publishing my book, right? So I've been going through this whole process. I've narrowed it down to 2 publishers, got it all handled. I did my whole entire professional editing and everything. And I get it to this particular guy and he's like, oh, let me see it. And he was pretty aggressive, but kind of aggressive in a good way, that you like him. I really like this guy. Give me the money kind of guy. And then he takes the money and then he sends me back this report, tells me everything he's going to do. And that's when he didn't take my money. He just sent me back a report. Like he looked at it, gave me the free diagnosis, which I really liked. And so he looks at it and then he says, this is what your book needs. So let me help you out. $3,000. And I'm like, ooh, $3,000. All right. So I give him the 3 G's, right? Now I'm just going to say he fell a little short, right? But I still liked the guy. I still really liked him and everything. So the $3,000 I wasn't mad about, but I was a little bit mad about the process. Kind of failed. And I get him on the phone. I think it was yesterday. Get him on the phone yesterday. And I'm like, Arthur, what's up, bro? I go, you promised me the world. And I said, and so I didn't really want money back, but then he tells me how much it's going to cost, right, to publish this whole thing. I didn't really want my money back, but I thought maybe he could say, tell you what I'll do, Steve. I was looking for that deal. No, right. No deal. He's like, no, this is what it's going to cost. You want it done right. You want it done this way. Here's your price. And I was like, really? He goes, yes, sir. That's what we talked about. I'm like, okay. But I mean, he just had me under the ether. Right? He had no qualms. And after we got off the phone, I'm like, he didn't even offer me a discount. He didn't offer me like a free book or anything. He's like, no, this is the money and take it. It was kind of a take it or leave it thing, but he was just so good that I bought it. I'm like, okay. Okay, there you go.
He who speaks next loses. So, you got to not do it. And again, we always talk about it. There's some people just have that gift, I guess, or they know what they schooled on it. They close, right? Yeah. No, you just sit there and you look, right? And you just, they don't say a word. They don't blink. They don't, he who speaks next loses. So, yeah, I mean, I think, I wish we could take and that's why I don't get mad at some of these vendors either. Like, they call you and bother you and stuff. Because, I appreciate the fact that they're still trying to sell me something, right?
Yeah.
Who just walked behind you? Visitors? Holy cow. That was AI, right?
Studio clean. Thank you.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
That was AI. That's what it was.
It was AI, yeah.
AI bot.
Yeah, no, I think, there's a lot of learning lessons, and I think I don't want to bore anybody when you go out there, but when you look at other businesses and the things that other businesses get away with, and we are all customers when we go out there. It's a shame that we don't adopt some of these things into our daily life, into our business lives, right? Or our individuals and our service advisors. Because again, we have these conversations about let's use maintenance for example. Like I believe every 6 months, right? And I'm steadfast on that. And yet you have a conversation with somebody. One of the guys at the Mercedes place, and he's like, oh no, it's once a year. And I'm like, no, it's not once a year. It's not. I said, and then you got Land Rover telling you, in the ultimate perfect driving conditions, it's 24 months. Well, it's not 24 months. If you look at the owner's manual, there's a severe driving schedule and it's 6 months, but nobody wants to have that conversation, right? Because it's just, it's 6 months, right? That's what it is, and, it's just, I don't know, like, how come the rest of the world, my heating and air conditioning twice a year, right? The guy was just here. You know what he did? He just did the heater. I have to call now to get the air conditioner guy to come back in the spring, right? It's not automatic, right? So, but everything's twice a year. The dentist twice a year. Like, but yet I have a hard time convincing people that this is what's to be serviced. They just, I don't know. I don't get it.
And they do such a good job of assuming the sale. Like they do such a great job. they do a great job of it. Look, I'm here. I'm working on your AC. It's going to be $5,000 to fix it, right? There's, I'll get this done for you. It's $5,000. It's not, would you like to? It's not, here's a synchrony, here's a card. It's, I'm here. The total cost is $5,000. I'll have it done by 5:00 tonight. It's like, what are you going to do, right? It's that assumptive sale. And I think that that's something that we lack all the time. I hate to say we talked about being scared. I think, and it's like, I think it's being scared of asking for the sale because we're so afraid of getting a no. And if you think about it, I need it. I need my AC fixed. I need my heater fixed. I need this. And so there is no going to happen. I need my car fixed. And our advisors don't look at it. And that's what we preach all the time. If it's needed, it has to be done, right? It requires attention. It fails inspection. It must be done. So why are we even having a conversation, about that? And if you really even think about it, this is Steve going on a rant right now. It's, in our world, it's not even about if it's $5,000. Well, what if I leave and I go somewhere else? Well, it's still going to be, let's say $4,000 at the independent shop or $4,500 somewhere else. So what are we arguing about? $500? So we're having this conversation about $500, the difference between aftermarket and the dealer price, right? So it's a minimal price at best. It's not about the 5Gs. It's about the difference. And so if we would just start looking at it from a different perspective, these are assumptive sales. We should just be assuming that the customer's going to buy. I don't understand why we don't do more of that.
You ever hear that commercial that's on like the XM radio and stuff like that? And it's the guy's like the world's greatest sales trainer. And he says, most people don't close until you've asked them 5 times, but yet most of your salesmen don't ask them once. 80% of the salespeople in this business have never had one class or training in salesmanship, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's funny. It's like, you have a lot of people that don't even ask once for the sale. They just, they and I think you had mentioned it the other day when we were talking, it's like taking an order is not selling. Right. Yeah. Writing up a warranty issue is not selling. That's you're taking an order, and yet we pay for it, right? We pay commissions on it. So, but I just think there's a lesson to be learned is just go out in the real world, talking to some of these vendors, right? We're talking about like surcharging. So the one company on the credit cards, right?
Yeah.
So, we get the 3% on the credit card. And I said, well, I want to use my own credit card company to surcharge. And he goes, well, if you do that, then you have to use ours. And I said, well, why is yours? He goes, well, we guarantee you're not going to pay any credit card processing fees. I said, okay. I said, but what about the debit cards? He goes, well, you have to pay for those. I said, so at the end of the month, my fees will be 1.5%-ish, right? And he goes, yeah, you have to pay 100% of that. I go, well, right now my fees are 0.8. So you're just going to keep the extra money of doing a 3% surcharge, and then you're going to negotiate because you own the credit card processing company. You're going to do 2.5. You're going to make 0.5 point on it. And he just stopped and looked at me, and because unfortunately I know more about it, right? But then he's like, but then you won't pay any, but he goes right back into his line, but you won't pay any fees. And I said, well, I'm going to pay for the debit fees, but like some of this stuff, like again, like I was going to say is when you go out there and you start really like seeing what other people do, it's eye opening. And that's the thing that bothers me about most people is like, why not take some of these things into your personal life and professional life and build those stories around it, right? Using analogies. And, again, I could talk all day about some of the stuff that we were seeing out there in Vegas. It was pretty funny. I mean, just the fact they don't care, man. They just know they will just ask for the.
I always try to take the stuff from I call it the real world, outside of the car business. These are things that are being done. Would you like fries with that? Would you like a double shot for $2? It's being done. And like you said, it's a $20 double shot in Vegas. It's not a $2 double shot. Right. It's being done everywhere. It's not like we are inventing something that the customer's never heard of, like an alignment, like an assuming that you're going to buy an alignment that you need, required, and you must have. Like, I'm just going to assume that. And everybody just goes, no, that's not friendly. It has nothing to do with friendly or not. It's being professional and assuming and asking for the sale, right? And oh my gosh, we could go on a tangent for another 20 minutes about that.
Yeah, I'll leave you on the last one is the difference between the two, though, right? So last night I get to the airport, taking a red eye. I get there. I want to say it's like 9:00, something like that, right? So I pull up to this wood-fired pizza bar in the terminal where you take off, and I sit down, and the guy says, "Listen," he goes, "last call's in 10 minutes." He goes, so he asked me what I want to drink, asked me if I want a double. Of course, you say yes, right? And then he gives me the menu, and he walks down the end of the bar. He was talking to one of the girls that was at the bar. He comes back and he goes, "Do you want to order any food?" And he goes, "The kitchen shuts down first." I said, "No, I'm good. I don't want any food." So then he does that with every single. There was like 4 or 5 of us at the bar. He does that with every single person at the bar, which is great, right? He wants to see, right? And then the chef comes over and asks everybody again, "Before I shut down, you guys want anything?" Like, it wasn't like they weren't hiding from the fact. They were actually reaching out to see if you want anything, right? So then it gets closer to time, and he comes back and he goes, "Hey, do you want a to-go cup before I shut down the bar?" I said, "Yeah, give me a to-go cup. Like, a little, whatever, so you can leave." So I get it, and everybody at the bar gives us the thing. They square up for them. We all pay, right? And then he goes, "Hey, listen, if you guys need anything else to drink, when you come out of here, you make a right. Just past Dunkin' Donuts. There's another bar. It's open until 12:30. Like, I'm like, okay. Like, the guy was very helpful. He had no problem asking for all the money. He had no, you know what I mean? He had no problem bumping you up to a double each time. But he was a very professional bartender, And then some lady walks up. Right after he cashes all of us out. And he goes, "Can I help you with something?" She's like, "Well, I don't know what I want." He goes, "We're technically closed, but if you want a drink, I can open up for the drink." And she said, "Well, I think I want to eat." He goes, "Go down to the place that's open till 12:30, like that type of thing." But he was willing to give her a drink. He wasn't like hiding behind the bar when she walked in. And most of your advisors would have done that 5 minutes before closing. They would have hightailed it out back. But the guy was very professional. It's amazing when you see that. And that's the point I want to make, is when you see that professionalism, it's like it attracts you. You're like, okay, that's what I want my people to do right there.
Exactly. Well, I'll say this last thing. I'll let you close this out. I have to go to Home Depot today. Twice. Why? Because I actually forgot when I got there, I forgot what I went for. But not one person said to me, "Anything else I can do for you?" Like, you bought a clamp and a hose and a this and a that. I actually forgot the power washer. And I was like, I went there for a reason, and I forgot the most important thing. But yet nobody would help me. It's like, now I'm back at Home Depot again. If somebody would just said, "Anything else I can do for you?" I would have went, "Oh yeah." Right. Yeah. And I would have bought that extra. It would have saved me a trip. I'd have been a happy guy. I would not have been upset for them trying to upsell me what I came to the store for. Anyway, you got to wrap us up. Give us a GM tip of the day.
Yeah, listen, I think, GM tip of the day, I'd maybe take your people out and do a little team building and experience some of the stuff that, you could do, you could see and maybe learn from and teach, right? We had, so, the funny thing is they had the F1 arcade games, right? So we pay per person for the 3 races. And when you're cashing out, there's a place for tips, right? So we're like, what would you tip? We still bought tickets, right? Like, why would we tip them, right? So I didn't think he tipped them. And then we go over to the machines, and she spends like a half a second teaching us how the machines. I go, I think that's what the tip would have been for, So, but take your people out is my point, and get them to experience real life, and maybe run up against some folks that give you the blink test and learn from them, or hire them while you're out. One of the two.
Hire them. That's it.
Okay.
All right, let's get out of here. Go get some sleep. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, brother. Talk to you.
Like, share, and subscribe. And remember, do not operate a dealership without consulting Dave Rogers and Steve Shaw first.